When I dove into it and understood the mind, the power of the subconscious, and the ability that we have to create our own reality in every single moment, that's when I took my power back.
Yeah.
And that's when I understood that I could change what I had been experiencing, the things that Western medicine doctors and specialists could not figure out.
When we connected, one of the things that I've been studying recently and learning more about is this theology around quantum. And I wanted to bring you on to help, the rest of us figure out what that actually means and how that actually helps, and maybe how you even started on that journey, because that's not a natural journey people start on.
No, it's really not.
Yeah. So give us a little feedback. Tell us what this is and kind of where it came from.
Oh my gosh. So I have been involved in understanding the quantum field really since about 2017.
Okay.
And that came upon having to navigate through my own healing journey after having been in Boston at the Boston Marathon finish line in 2013.
Oh, wow.
And so what I've come to understand is the power of the mind and the power of curiosity and the ability that we have to be able to create our own reality, understanding the energy that lies outside of us as being completely part of us. It's a really fascinating field. And when I very first got into it, I studied Bruce Lipton, who, for those who don't know, he's a cellular biologist who studied stem cells. And what he understood in that, having studied that, is that we have the power, and the environment has the power to turn off and turn on our DNA and our genes. And I thought, well, that is really stinking fascinating. And so when I dove into it and understood the mind, the power of the subconscious, and the ability that we have to create our own reality in every single moment, that's when I took my power back. And that's when I understood that I could change what I had been experiencing, the things that Western medicine doctors and specialists could not figure out.
Yeah, no, I'm curious to know, what was life like before you began this study and began to obviously even practice in this field? Like, what was life like beforehand, between the bombing and then the moment, kind of where you are today?
Yeah. So from after the bombing, I was at the finish line. And so I experienced things that you can only imagine could be experienced. It was very traumatic. And having witnessed, seen, having to run for my life, quite honestly, after leaving the medical tent, they thought there was another bomb. People were screaming to run as fast as you could, as far away as you could. I took off running and eventually stopped, eventually found my family. Next day, I go back down to the finish line to kind of pick up my things. And a reporter had wanted to ask me questions. Can you tell me about your experience? Can you tell me where you were at when the bombs went off? And as he's asking me these questions, there's a voice inside my head that said, "It's not your story to tell." And I turned and I walked away. And I understood and heard that voice so clearly that I stepped on the plane from Boston as a participant, and I stepped off the plane at home as a spectator.
Oh, wow.
And I just went back into my everyday life. I owned a multi-million-dollar business at that point, and went back in the office, turned on the news like everybody else, watched what happened. And when they were captured, I shut off the news and I went about life. Well, that only held for a good couple of months until I wasn't able to walk up a flight of stairs without being assisted. I became very bedridden ill. I had no idea what was going on. Everybody tried to tell me I was depressed. I knew that wasn't it. So I searched and searched. And for about 3 years, the diagnoses came down to chronic Lyme disease, Hashimoto's. I had multiple autoimmune conditions. I mean, just cascading. My insomnia was so significant that I was on 5 prescription sleep medications to fall asleep at night.
Wow.
Well, at some point, you get to the point where you're like, this is crap. Like, I have got to get to the other side of this, because this is not how I am going to live my life.
Yeah.
Now, I still went to work. I still did all the things and navigated the life the way that I knew that I was supposed to do. But when I then found that mind-body connection, that subconscious mind, and what we do with those traumas when we become spectators of them, as opposed to allowing ourselves to navigate through it with curiosity, then I was able to fully overcome. And that insomnia was gone literally overnight.
Wow.
All of those illnesses, which they have no medical way of bringing somebody to the other side of, those were overcome as well. And so now I have navigated through all of that. I no longer carry any of those illnesses. And I fully practice in this style of pro-consciousness medicine because it's so incredibly powerful. I've seen people change their lives in a matter of moments based on an experience that they're having.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you said that, because a lot of the studying that I've been doing on it, because I think I told you, as a person of faith, I've been like trying to merge the two theologies together, because when you really look at them, they actually overlay very easily.
Yes.
But in doing so, one of the things that I've discovered in all the readings and things, that people are literally getting healed from the inside out of all kinds of things. I mean, things that, doctors said, you'll never do this again. You'll never do that again. You may as well give this up, give that up. And meanwhile, people are leaning into, I guess, it's not even an alternative medicine anymore. It's becoming more natural than unnatural, I guess, is the best way to say it. What does it really mean to practice in this unconscious medicine field? Like, what is that? What you call it? What you just call it?
Pro-consciousness medicine.
Pro-consciousness. What does that mean? How do you operate in that, or how do you practice it?
The first thing you have to do in order to be able to step into that is just to be curious, just to have a curiosity, and then be able to navigate through what I call the mind maze in order to understand what this single experience that's sitting in front of you, what that is offering, and what subconscious programming led you to create that current situation or experience that you're sitting in. When I'm working with people, it is simply a matter of asking questions. What's happening in life? What tends to be going on? I'll give you a very specific example. So last fall, my son was playing football, and this was his sport. He's the captain of the football team. Yeah. He goes out first quarter, takes a hit, comes off, they pull him back. They're doing all the testing, seems to test out fine. They put him back on the field. He takes another hit. This time comes off, helmet comes off, gloves come off, and I know something's going on. So I go down, athletic trainer comes over to the side with him and says, look, he's got a concussion. First time he went down, lights got really bright, sensory overload. Second time he went down, got a headache. I don't even know if you should keep him here the rest of the game, right? Because there's so much, the sensory stuff, it can just be too much. You might want to take him out. So it's about halftime. I go up and sit in the stands. He's the captain. He's not going anywhere. And he calls me back down and he says, Mom, I think I'm in my head about this. I said, I don't know what that means. Well, this is his language for it. And he goes, no, I think I'm in my head about this. Can you do your thing? And so we went into the right, like, no pressure. So we go back into the den. Team's gone back out to the field. We sit down. I start asking him a couple questions. Your energy field is your greatest communicator. We feel like we are having conversations in the words that we speak. We're really not. We are, but our energy, our subconscious mind is actually communicating louder, and that's what's creating experiences. Well, I have the ability to be able to read that, and with just a little bit of experience and curiosity, anybody can, right?
Yeah.
And so I said to him a couple of things just to kind of check and see where he was at. And I said, I resent football. And he was like, yeah. Now, consciously, this is, of course not, right? But this is subconsciously. And I can test him on this. And then I said, I'm sabotaging my football game. And he looks up at me and he goes, I knew I was doing it. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. Okay. So why do you think you're sabotaging your football game? What is this about? So I start asking questions. Now, these questions are never linear. It's not about the football game. It's about something greater and larger, where there's so much pressure because of his legacy, which led to someday getting married and have children. And we just kind of went down this whole rabbit hole and we found the source of it. Okay. So I said, now, can we have God teach you something different? Can we have the energy, the quantum field teach you something different? He said, yes. So we did. I said, all right, let's show that subconscious mind. It can do something different now. It doesn't have to do that anymore. And his concussion was gone just like that.
Wow.
He stood up and the power that he was exuding from his energy was palpable.
Mm-hmm.
All right, dude, what are you going to do? Don't worry about it, Mom. I got this. Puts his pads back on, goes out to the field. Trainer pulls him in, tests him out, and he nailed it. Second half of the game, goes back in. That's the kind of power that we have in understanding the subconscious mind and understanding how to utilize that quantum field. Because honestly, it's the consciousness that has the power over the physical matter, over the body that we have. It's not the other way around.
Well, all right. So if curiosity is at the heart, at least the early stage or getting started, how do we operate in curiosity without judgment? Because I find that like when my mind, and this is me practicing, right? I'm going into curiosity, right? I'm trying to be curious. I'm like, well, and then you inevitably you start judging either something, a person, place, a thing, yourself. How do you get to because I know you can't operate correctly in the quantum without letting go of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, are there techniques or anything that you can share that kind of help you dive into it quicker?
The first thing that I do in any circumstance, any situation, I don't care if I'm falling down, I don't care if I am having an argument, or if there's something that's not working in my business. Mm-hmm. The very first thing I do is I go, isn't that interesting? I wonder. And if you make that statement, it automatically shifts the energy around what it is that you're experiencing. And you have the ability to be able to see something from a greater perspective. Just in those simple words, they carry a different vibration. Isn't that interesting? I wonder why. I wonder why I needed that experience. I wonder why I felt that way. I wonder why I responded that way. That curiosity really brings it back centerfold into you, as opposed to questioning the circumstances around you. When we hit that judgment point, it's because we're questioning. We're not truly getting curious in order to understand the source of it.
Wow. I never thought about that before. That's actually really, really interesting. It really is. Well, tell me a little about so how was this career began to shape up? Obviously, you were a super successful entrepreneur before.
Yeah. I
know you have a heart because I got to spend a few minutes with you at an event we were at together, and I know you have a super big heart for people and super big heart to help them kind of walk into this. So, what has life been like since really adopting the theology, really kind of going into this pro consciousness methodology on a consistent basis for you and for other people?
Complete life shift. I would say that for me personally, having navigated that, even if it didn't turn out to be what it is that I do and my passion for a living, I am so much more compassionate, so much more loving. I have a greater understanding for people, and I have the ability to see things from multiple perspectives. That to me is one of the greatest gifts. I truly love myself and trust myself in a different way than I ever could have imagined prior to. Now, while I navigated that business and I was really super successful, there were moments when I would go, is this it? Like I checked all the boxes, right? And I did all the things, right? This is it. This is it for the rest of my life. And so that question had already been percolating. And then when I got into the experience that I had and I was able to step to the other side of it and I brought in this curiosity, it gave me a greater clarity to be able to see life again, totally new and fresh and different than I ever had before. When I'm working with clients, that ultimately is the end goal. The end goal is to get to a point where you are so crystal clear without fear, without having to make decisions from that space, that you can follow your intuition and you know the direction to go and things just magnetize. You're able to create from a completely different space. And if something's not working, they know how to shift it. They know how to change it. They have a greater awareness. No longer are they a victim of the circumstance, but they know that they are the creator and they have all the power that they need in order to be able to shift something that's not working.
Well, there's been a term that I've heard used by a lot of people called the higher self. Like they just connect with your higher self. And I remember the first time I ever heard that, I was like, well, dude, if I knew how to connect with my higher self, I wouldn't be here. Like, like, I mean, who is my higher self? Is he a lot taller than I am? Because I'm a pretty short guy, and I find that term is now thrown around a lot, like especially in the more creative style of healing and medicine and natural. And I find that most people don't understand what that is, because I'm wondering if maybe you could help me break that down. Because I've always been told that part of operating with quantum is ultimately to become the higher self, or to somehow integrate with your higher self, or something along those lines. And I find it confusing, which is why I figured I would ask an expert, like, to try to break it down, because I'm confused.
Right. Oh my gosh. I remember when that term would be thrown around before I got into this. I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Anytime that you can bring yourself into a form of presence, a quiet state, or a meditative state, you're going to bring yourself closer to what people would consider or call the higher self. To me, what that truly is it's the most authentic, truest version of you that sits within you, that is separate from the ego, right? And so it is a matter of getting closer to, but it's not something that sits outside of, it's something that sits within. It's the pureness of the energy of who you are, outside of the roles that we play, the ways that we perceive ourselves, the expectations, obligations, anything that's been placed on us or that we've picked up over the course of the lifetime that really have created us to be who we believe that we are in any given moment. Yeah. Right. And so the higher self is the wisest version of you. It's the version of you that actually knows the truest desire, the passion, the purpose that you have in this lifetime. It's the one that knows, it's that intuitive ability to be able to navigate each and every step purely, right? Without having that fear. Yeah. And when you step into the curiosity, or what I call a true seeker's journey, you're able to get really, really clear on what that is. And life feels different. It doesn't feel supercharged. It doesn't feel like you have to do anything. Yeah. And so for me, that higher self is the consciousness that's creating the experiences that you're having in order to be able to learn lessons, to be able to shift outside of the ego back into the place of pureness, of home, in the true identity of who you are.
So it's almost like in a roundabout way, what I would refer to as a soul identity. Yeah. Like it's your identity before the trauma of being a being.
Right. Yes. Totally. Yes. Before you came in, and all of life and humanity through
before all those bills, before kids, before this, before that, before jobs. Yeah. Yeah. Well, because I find that one of the things that I've been doing recently. So I about 6 or 7 months ago, I stepped outside of the box a little bit and went and got a life coach that kind of operates in with healing, in with quantum, and with a lot of things that I have always instinctively felt like was true, like at an instinctual level, but at a logical level, I'm like, I know I'm not supposed to believe that. I know that can't be right. Like that kind of, and that battle back and forth. And as we were starting to work together, one of the things that he was working with me on specifically is how trauma actually gets trapped in the body. Yes. Specifically. And how, and not being able to emotionally release that trauma. It's almost like having an emotional bruise that manifests itself into a physical bruise on the inside. Can we talk a little bit about emotional trauma and how it gets trapped, and maybe how we can release it?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, that's actually the core of my work and what I do. And the reason why I'm such an advocate for the trauma of the untold story, because like I told you, when I stepped away from Boston, I had that voice that said, it's not your story to tell. And I buried my experience. And it wasn't until 3 years later when I understood, oh my gosh, in burying that, that's what created all of the illness that was manifesting in my body. And so every time I would pull away a layer, or I would listen to my body and I would get curious and ask, like, what is hanging out here? What needs to be released? Then that my health would improve and I'd be able to shift things. So truth of who you are is going to get out. That passion, that purpose, that trueness of identity, that higher self, that soul aspect is looking to be recognized and to be expressed fully within the realm of this lifetime.
Yeah.
Now, when we take the things and we pile it on top, or like I say, I used to take it and package it up in Tiffany boxes because they were really pretty. I'd package all of that stuff away. Then that energy that's sitting inside of the trauma that's not being acknowledged, or that you feel like, oh, I've talked about that 17 times, or I've been in therapy for 14 years for them. Like, great. You keep talking about it, but you're not integrating it. And so that energy that is sitting inside, for me, those boxes was just shaking and it was rattling. It's like an animal in a cage that's trying to come out. Well, if we don't allow it the opportunity to come out and express itself, it's going to show up in some other way in the body. Autoimmune disease, that's unresolved and unhealed trauma. That's what autoimmune disease is.
So what would you say to the person who, they're so sold on doctors and clinical, and if it's not doctors and clinical, then like it doesn't exist. So how do you help someone like that become curious enough to at least try, right? To try to put themselves in a position where they can, maybe realize. I mean, here's my weird story. So I had I had been having a repeated muscle spasm in my left glute forever. Right. And it had been persistent for several months. And one of the things he asked me, he goes, are you feeling any physical pain anywhere? I'm like, well, ironically, my butt cheek is like super tight. Right. We both giggled and whatever. And, and he said, okay, well, let's do some, what he referred to as energy work. And we went into I went into a meditative state. We worked through some things, and lo and behold, I came out of it completely, like it was gone.
Yeah.
Like nothing. And it hasn't returned.
Yeah.
So that was probably my first time I had seen that before, where I was like, isn't that interesting? Right. Like, right. Here I was, I've been on massage rollers and like doing, touching my toes and trying to like this, that, or the other thing. And then I go hang out with my life coach and we just do some meditation work and stuff like that. And the next thing I know, I'm fine and back to squatting and, doing whatever. But I can also realize that part of me, even when he said, well, we're going to do energy, I'm like, we're going to do what? Like I thought this was a coaching thing. He goes, it is a coaching thing, right? I'm going to coach you through this kind of thing. And then lo and behold, now I can take myself in and out of certain meditative states. Sometimes I look like I'm just completely sleeping. I'm not sleeping. I'm just, I'm in deep kind of thing, but I'm also coherent of what's going on around me, which is kind of weird.
Yep.
So I'm curious, like there are so many people that are walking around with a variety of different ailments. I am now more prone to believe that there's more of an emotional trigger or trauma that's somehow trapped that has to be released than I used to be. It used to be, give me some Tylenol, give me some Advil or whatever, I'll deal with the gut problems later, that kind of thing. So like, how do we help someone take a chance?
Oh my gosh. It's such a double-sided question, because at first when you say, the person who's like locked in to Western medicine and to doctors and to all of that, what do you say to them? One, sometimes you can't say anything, quite honestly. It's so ingrained and it's such a collective belief that doctor's coat is going to be the answer to everything. The flip side of that is the question I would have is, at what point does it ever get to be enough? At what point does it ever get to be enough? And what is to use my son's example, like what's your fourth quarter? For him, when he came off that field, he says, Mom, if we're down in the fourth quarter, I'm playing. And I said, well, not if you're injured. He wanted something more than he wanted to be where he currently was. And that's the place that people need to get to. That's where I got to, where it was like, you know what, I'm done with this. I need to figure out a different way around. And so I had to get present and I had to get really curious to start asking the questions to figure out, like, there's got to be another way. I had very much the same experience. So I couldn't run for years. And I navigated the beliefs and the trauma that kind of sat underneath that. It is this, light meditative state that you get into. And for me, it's a very active meditation because I'm asking questions and I'm diving in to figure out what the body is trying to express to me. And so to know that you have that kind of power, that we are energy beings, that's what the quantum field, quantum medicine is. It's understanding that everything is energy. And if everything is energy, then we have the ability to shift and change that. You just have to be curious and you have to want something more than you want to stay where you are. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing is to release shame, because the biggest issue that we have when we navigate through any kind of traumatic experience is an instant shame that we experience for having had an experience, which is crazy. Yeah. But that was me in that moment. Like, I wasn't injured. Yeah. I wasn't directly impacted. Right. And so I carry shame because I even had an experience. Therefore I shut it down. Yeah. You get to have an experience. You get to have feelings. You get to feel like, you know what? I just witnessed the frailty of humanity, or security and stability just was shook a little bit. That's okay. Yeah. That's okay. Just allow that to be expressed. And then to know that you have the power to change it.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that. I think one of the things that I've seen is selective science.
Yeah.
Selective science. I choose to believe this science, but I choose to disregard this science. And here's what I mean by that. Science is already proven, and this has been around for probably a decade, that we have an electromagnetic field that encompasses our entire being.
Yep.
They've been able to see it, resonate it, capture it on special cameras and all kinds of stuff. It's about 1/4 of an inch off the top of our skin.
Yep.
Okay. They've also been able to prove that at any point in time, that same presence, if you will, that electromagnetic field can increase and pulse. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also kind of decrease and kind of come in. They've also proven that people, the sixth sense that we always talk about, is people are conscious or whatever. When we get around somebody else that we know, we just feel like in our gut that's not, we don't need to be around them. Yep. Like there's something danger or whatever, that's that same field. And when those fields collide, they either attract or repulse, almost like a magnet.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why one of the reasons why I've been struggling recently with some of the beliefs with medicine in general. Western medicine, call it that, right? Because Western medicine is also caught up to a certain degree and proven that many of the things that the Eastern medicines and some of the other types have had previously are really present and have been for a long, long time. I mean, even the quantum has been around a lot longer than most of us can mm-hmm. really understand. Well, I mean, it's more of an eternal force in general. But what I'm getting at is it's been known about in certain levels of humanity for a number of years now. It's been quantified, no pun intended, quantified now, moving in right in today's time frame. But with the people that you're working with, what do you think their number one stumbling block is in moving towards this direction?
Trust that they can do something to heal. Trust that they can do something to heal, and to know that they have the ability to be better tomorrow than where they are today. Yeah. And I do think too, there's such a, like we talked about, there's such a collective around what medicine should be mm-hmm. versus the opportunity that it has. And so for people to allow themselves to just be curious enough to question, like, what if I did do something different? What if I stepped away from this? I think the problem with any kind of traditional means is that it doesn't look for the source. Mm-hmm. It just addresses the issue, right? It just addresses the symptom. And I think that in so many different areas of, trying to navigate some kind of health. Mm-hmm. So we address the symptom, we don't go to the source. Mm-hmm. In the curiosity and the work, it's a matter of understanding, like, I have this thing that's going on, but I want to know deeper than that. I want to know broader than that. And I'm not looking for the quick fix. Nothing that you're going to do to step into this is going to be a quick fix.
Yeah.
Something is going to be painful. It's going to hurt just a little bit, but it doesn't have to hurt for years. It gets to hurt for maybe 30 minutes, or you have to navigate that trauma like you did in, that slight meditative state in order to be able to release something. But it's the understanding that, one, we have the power to do it. Two, that it's out there and it's available. You just have to be curious to step into it and stop looking for a quick fix, because all that quick fix is going to do is it's going to, stop the runny nose without addressing the source, right? Yeah. It's going to get you to the edge of the maze, like I say, without allowing you to navigate all the way into it to be able to release the thing that is keeping you stuck. Had I stopped being curious, I wouldn't be running. Yeah. I wouldn't be training to qualify for Boston again this fall. Yeah. I wouldn't be anywhere near the person that I am today. And so I think to give people that opportunity to know that you get to have an amazing life. You get to be fully vital and healthy. Like, that is your birthright. We don't have to navigate in these shady corners anymore, or to just be average.
Yeah. I mean, in some respects, is it as easy as either focusing on lack or focusing on abundance?
Yeah.
I mean, because I've discovered that when I focus on problems, the problems get bigger.
Oh, for sure.
But when I focus on moving forward gets easier.
Yes. Well, it's because we create what our mind states. And what your mind states consciously is just a representation of what you're feeling subconsciously. Right now, if we have the opportunity to step back into the subconscious, which you do, to be able to find the things that everybody tells you are hidden, right? It's subconscious. You're not going to be able to find it, but you can be able to release it. Then we're not looking at a world of lack. We're looking at a world of abundance. Yeah. This was all taught when we were kids. Yeah. Between 0 and 7, this is where we pick up so much of this stuff. And then our life experiences simply reflect the subconscious beliefs that we have. Yeah. So even if consciously you think there's abundance, but your life is representing something different, that means just step into the subconscious, match it up, and now you've got more power to be able to move forward and have your reality reflect that back to you.
Yeah, it was fun. I tweeted out something that not that long ago. It's just a realization that I've discovered that's become like a life truth, which is you're always being programmed. Always being programmed. It's just, it comes down to who's doing the programming. Or are you letting your environment, your emotions, your friends, your relationships, are you letting that program you? Or are you programming yourself with the means to take yourself to a whole different level?
Yes.
And then I got a little pushback. Now one person, she goes, well, what if I don't want to go to another level? Well, I said, well, that's the beauty about your life, is you can choose not to go to another level. That's completely up to you. I personally, I would like to leave the world a little better than when I first entered, and at least in my sphere of influence. I believe I'm called to operate at scale and to serve people at scale, and that's what I intend to do. And I realize that that's not for a lot of people. It's and I don't know if it's a life contract, or I don't know what's at odds with it, other than this is something that I cannot let go of. Now, part of that not letting go of it was meeting different, better versions of myself along the way. So now I'm kind of almost like not say addicted, but I'm kind of like, ooh, what's next? I'm more curious. I guess more curious. It's like, ooh, what's next? Who else can I become? Right? I've already been the homeless guy. I've already been the entrepreneur. I've already been I've already been the author. It's like, okay, well, like how many more lives can I fit in this one life? Right?
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about setting the intention to maybe like setting the intention to actually lead towards curiosity.
Well, I think you nailed it in just what you said. Ooh, I wonder what else I could do. I wonder what else I could be. What is the next level? Right? Without complacency. Too often we get complacent and we feel like, oh, well, this is it. Yeah. Right? Isn't this the way the life is supposed to be? It's like one of my favorite lines from a show where he asks Grace, he's like, were you really happy? And she said, well, I was happy enough. Isn't that how it's supposed to be? And I thought, well, gosh, no. But to so many, yes. Right. Yeah. And then I think, okay, well, going back to the higher self, my soul being, the essence of who I am, is here for some purpose. Now, It could be. There are those that are going to navigate in the realm of just being the victim throughout an entire life. That's awesome. That's their experience. That is what they are here to learn.
Yeah.
Right. But if you allow yourself to, every single thought that you have is trying to reveal and show you something.
Mm-hmm.
Every single thought you have. If you have a song that's repeating in your head, that's trying to show you something. If a line from a movie pops out at you and you think, oh, that was really good, that's trying to show you something. So get curious about it.
Mm-hmm.
Ask a question. Gosh, what is that trying to show to me? What's that trying to reveal to me? Because maybe that is your opening to say, gosh, what else could be out there?
Yeah.
Right? What else is there? And then you dive into curiosity, and you don't have to know where it's going to land you. Yeah. That's the other key thing. Stop having some kind of outcome planned in your mind, because that's going to negate the curiosity. I know for 2 years when I was studying quantum fields and the mind, I'd be asked, what are you going to do with this? I don't know. I just know I'm supposed to be doing it. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? That's beautiful. So if there's any piece that says, gosh, I wonder, could there be more? Yeah. Or if the question is this it? Then yes, there is more. Start getting curious and following that.
I've also found that the disturbance is in the distraction, right? So it's, we're constantly, whether we know it or not, distracting ourselves from focusing on the inside of ourselves.
Yes.
We want to watch a TV show. We want to play on social media. We want to go out with friends. We want to do this. We want to do that. We want to do this. And the one thing that most of us don't do routinely, and this is something I'm learning to do now, is spend a good 30 or 40 minutes with myself.
Yeah.
Like in quiet, letting the thoughts, well, I don't know if I want to, when I first sat down to do it for the first time, just to sit in quiet, which is kind of funny because when I go to write a book or when I go to create content or whatever, I always go to a quiet place and I just kind of see what flows. Yeah. Which kind of struck me as odd because that would be the only time I would do it. I would never just go do it just to be present in that moment. And I've discovered that, everything in life that was creating problems for me could be listed in a distractionary category. Mm-hmm. Like this is a thing that is distracting me from focusing on me, making myself better. The other thing I think that's pretty interesting is I had a young man one time who's dealing with some pretty serious health issues. Meaning he doesn't have the mobility he used to have and all that kind of stuff. And, and so I trying to put myself in his shoes. One of the things that I was thinking through was, there's not a lot of movement, right? Mm-hmm. So they're not moving a whole lot. And then it didn't take a couple minutes later. He's like, well, and I don't even know why I'm here. I'm trapped in this body. I'm this, I'm that. I'm like, okay. And then ironically, the one person that came to my mind, who was completely trapped in his body, was Stephen Hawkins. Mm-hmm. Right? He lost all mobility whatsoever prior to him passing, but yet he still found purpose in thought. He still found purpose in thinking about the complex and the different levels of what the universe could be, and even some of the quantum, so I think it just goes to show that there is always more, no matter what you're facing. What I find interesting about your work, though, is how it can actually lead people to healing out of things that doctors have actually said you'll never heal from. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason why people won't sit and allow themselves to have a conversation with themselves is because they're afraid of what they're going to find. They're too afraid of the pain that might arise. They feel as though, and I hear this so often from my clients, they feel as though that's the thing that's actually going to take them down. Yeah. It's going to be way too overwhelming. And I think, but you already lived the experience. Yeah. You already did it. Yeah. Right. This just gets to be we're going to let go the release valve on that pressure cooker. Yeah. So it's going to hurt for a moment. You're going to have some tears. You're going to cry. At the end, we're going to see things from a completely different perspective. That is beautiful. I have the opportunity now to look back at Boston and see it as a completely different experience. I relish that experience. I love that experience. It was absolutely beautiful. And I can see it from so many different angles and perspectives. So by allowing yourself to sit and to be quiet, and to just let the thoughts process, to let the thoughts come through and to get curious about them.
Yeah.
Because a handful of those, well, majority of those aren't even your dang thoughts.
Yeah.
They're not. There's something that you've been programmed with. It's probably your mom who's still scrutinizing you from the time you were 3 years old for having taken a toy from somebody else.
Yeah.
So if we can do that and maybe even place a different, I've had clients place different names on it, right? So if we want to take that experience, if we want to look at that subconscious mind, and if we want to release judgment on it, name it something else, call it Betty. I don't care what you call it, right? But it's there for a reason. And the experience you had when you were 5 years old is from a completely different perspective. You had a different truth. Of course, at 45 years old, you're going to look back at something that you did and judge it, right? Because, well, now I understand and know. Allow yourself to go back and see it from a 5-year-old's perspective.
Yeah.
Just allow it to be. But that's the reason why people don't sit in the quiet and in the moments. If they did, and if they allowed themselves to navigate through those traumas, with curiosity, to be able to get on the other side of it and to be able to integrate it. That's the key thing. Every experience in life is there to teach you something.
Yeah.
Everything. We create patterns. We do the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It doesn't rhyme or it doesn't repeat. It just rhymes, right?
Yeah.
And so if we have the ability to go back in and look and figure out what we were supposed to be learning, we no longer have to have that experience. Then we get to create something new.
Yeah. No, I love that.
We get at the end of the day, then sit in that quiet moment.
And let's go. Yeah. You know, the other thing, I tell you what, one of the most difficult things that I have now become comfortable doing that I was not comfortable doing the very first time. And even several times after that, was when I was working with my coach and we were doing some meditation stuff. He was walking me through things and we would finish up our meditation. He goes, okay, now I want you to say, I love you, Stephen, 3 times to yourself. And I was like, what? No, what? That's weird. No. And then, you know, enough nudging my way. And it's like, I love you.
Yeah.
And the crazy part is when I started doing that, I began to accept me.
Yeah.
Like before that moment, I was not accepting me. I was striving to become a different version of me without accepting me to begin with. And now that I've accepted me, other things are flowing outside of me that weren't there before, which is just weird. Right? It's like everything's an inside job.
Everything's an inside job.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me. Now, the one thing I've done recently, though, that I've been encouraging people I work with is I want you to lock eyes with yourself. I want you to find yourself in the mirror and lock eyes with yourself and then say those things.
Yes.
And I did it I did it not too long ago with somebody has a higher profile in life currently. And it was funny because they did it for the first time and literally immediately started crying, just weeping. Like it's crazy that we don't give ourselves permission.
No, we don't, do we? Yeah. And we're so judgmental of ourselves, right? We look in the mirror and we think, look at all of the negative. There's actually a story of a woman who had ALS. And what she did in order to heal is she sat and looked at herself in the mirror. And every single day she would pick a part of herself to just love. If it was a fingertip, if it was her knee, if it was right. And she would just send so much love into that aspect of her that she overcame ALS.
Wow.
That's how powerful self-love is. But in order to get into that self-love, like you say, you have to acknowledge and accept without judgment every aspect of who you are.
Yeah.
And that goes back into those aspects of the 5-year-old, of the 8-year-old, of the 15-year-old, of every experience that you have had. Everything that you think holds shame is simply there as an experience that your higher self has called forward in order for you to be able to grow, evolve, and learn in this lifetime. So you don't have to come back and do the same damn thing over again.
Right? It's time to level up.
Yes.
Well, guys, as you can see, you had to see why I had to have her on. She's a wealth of knowledge. She currently works with all kinds of folks. So if you guys are interested, where can they find you and where can they find out more about working with you?
CariRosno.com, CariRosno.com, or on all of the social media handles.
Rock on. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I really have enjoyed the conversation.
Awesome. Thanks. It's been amazing. Appreciate you.
All right. Take care. See ya.
Okay. Bye.
I hope you liked that video. And if you did, make sure you check out this next video right here.
You as an entrepreneur get the opportunity to serve and help and heal others, but you also get the opportunity that your customers are going to come back into your life to help you heal yourself, learn to love yourself at a greater level.